conflict is necessary for growth, right? You can't, growth and comfortability cannot exist together.
What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to the Struggle to Strength podcast, your source for real life application on how to turn your struggles into strengths in all things mind, muscle, and money. Travis and I, when we were talking to Chris Greco, he's obviously made some really great success on his own in building multiple very, very large businesses with good exits, lots of startups. And one of the things that we talked about that was really interesting to me was like how to hire the right people. So he gave some insight on their interview survey, talking about like their IQ, their EQ, how well they fit their culture, how hard they can hustle, and like getting the right people using some tools that he actually recommended to us on the podcast. So grab your pencils, grab a notebook. You're going to want to take notes for this one because Chris has done a phenomenal job in disrupting industry and, identifying where money should be spent, how people should be hired, how teams should be built. And if you are looking to build a business or looking to build a culture or community or anything like that, Chris has some really valuable insights. So we're for sure going to keep in touch with Chris. We learned a lot, and Travis and I kind of selfishly asked a lot of questions that would be helpful for us in building our business at this point. So we're hope that they're also helpful for you. So take notes and make sure you reach out to Chris and continue to learn more because he's a wealth of knowledge. But I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. We will see y'all inside.
Curious to learn about your company. You guys, I mean, you've built multiple businesses, it sounds like, and I read your bio. You've definitely found some success that I think we could learn from when it comes to starting and scaling a business. So I'm excited to dive into that a little bit today.
Yeah, just for full transparency, this is the third, and we're past early stage now, but really the third, early stage, company that I've joined. The first one that I've actually led is a president and CEO. And I actually was fortunate enough to have a front row seat to really a world-class leadership team, which was my first venture with Location Labs. I learned much from them, especially their CEO, Tasser Meliotis, who's continues to be a mentor of mine. And that has influenced how we're running things here at Storewise. So we're a company on the move for sure.
That's awesome. So you've been a part of then 3 startups, you said?
Correct.
Okay. And were you always interested in working in startup culture, or did you start in corporate culture?
I started in corporate, and
Okay.
I was really just a really successful salesperson that kind of moved up the ladder pretty quickly into a head of sales, and was recruited by Sprint, and then got into a corporate HQ environment, and that God bless him, it wasn't a fit for me.
Mm-hmm.
I feel I'm really scrappy, not apolitical, and I just want to get stuff done and have a maniacal focus on delivering value for my customer. Mm-hmm. And so I was recruited by Location Labs from Sprint, after making what I call a kind of a career limiting move when I was there, which pretty much sealed my ability to rise for doing what I felt was the right thing.
Yeah. Now, so Travis and I, we both started in corporate as well. And I'm curious because I went from corporate and I worked with one startup, and then I went off on my own and started my own businesses. Thank you. Do you feel like you learned, like, was it worthwhile for you to spend your time in corporate?
100%.
Yeah. What'd you learn? What were some of the lessons that you learned?
I mean, look, I learned quite a bit. I was on my first one was AT&T right out of business school. Mm-hmm. Well, my first one was actually the Nationals, a $500 million textile company, which I learned quite a bit from. But AT&T is really where I cut my teeth, and they actually really invested in training a lot of training. And I think that dealing with large being in a corporate environment and also dealing with large corporations such as American Airlines, Goldman Sachs, Northern Trust Bank, which are accounts, was extremely valuable, right? And it really helps me, here. And same thing when I moved to the Sprint. I walked the halls and dealt with all levels of management and different personality types. And Overland Park, Kansas, is a much different culture from South Beach.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you have that dynamic, and Sprint, Sprint was very generous in relocating, me and my wife, who was pregnant at the time, right? Making that transition uber easy. I mean, I had guys coming into my condo in Miami Beach who basically moved us. My wife's like, wow, I just got to set stuff on a table, and they put it in boxes for me, and then put it in a moving van, take it 1,500 miles, and then unpack it and put it on a table. I'm in.
Yeah.
So
what type of training did you get?
A lot of like leadership training, negotiation. They paid offsite training at Northwestern, University of Chicago. They did that, which I thought was very valuable. The access to the leadership team. AT&T was very good at this. They at the time it was really Bell South when I started, but AT&T acquired them or reacquired them. They gave us they were maniacal about training. And I think that kind of having that exposure. I mean, look, and also opportunities. I flew down with Governor Jeb Bush to South America. I was part of a 50 business person trade group that he took with that he essentially led to really build a name for South Florida for these Latin American companies to come in and invest, as a technology hub for them, or as a second headquarters. And so those type of experiences are just hard to do, and without being part of a company that's well heeled.
Totally. What do you think like the top skills are? Like whether it's the like training that you got, experience, or both, when you're migrating from the corporate or like any sort of employee to being your own boss of any sort, that type of shift. What do you think the top skills are? Managing conflict.
Yep. That checks out.
Right. I mean, I think, there's one of the things that I struggled, that I struggled with at Sprint. And you know what? It's never on one entity or one person. I was, equally as culpable is that when I would challenge ideas or a way of doing things. Part of it was my delivery. Part of it was a reluctance to accept someone else's idea. And I think that both parties can understand that conflict is necessary for growth, right? You can't, growth and comfortability cannot exist together. Yeah. It is not improbable. It's impossible. So I've always never let go, for better or worse, a maniacal customer focus. And when I got to Sprint, I noticed that I was in sales. So I brought that outside field perspective in the headquarters. And I thought that it was like a formal program, was rotation, right? And it wasn't. I just happened to befriend, the chief marketing officer when he was making a business trip down to South Florida. And he asked me what my career aspirations were. I'm like, look, I think I'd like to be a GM. And he says, well, you should probably learn, other functions besides sales. You should know marketing, you should know product, you should know finance. And he was willing to sponsor me, but it was kind of like, it seemed to me like a little bit of a one-off. So, I think managing conflict is probably for me is the biggest. And, it's absolutely necessary for a company to grow.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And, I know that you're also a pretty athletic guy, and you've done like Ironmans and things like that. So, like getting comfortable, the more comfortable you are, the less you're likely growing. So I definitely Definitely understand that. Yeah. So with that being said, you were essentially trained on all of these different strategies to improve your ability to lead an organization and scale an organization. And one of the things that you talk about is the challenge that we face in starting and scaling an organization or a business. You got a lot of training. What's your take on the companies that you've worked for and how you're managing now on training versus hiring top talent? Like, what's more important to you, and how has that sort of directed the way that you're growing your company?
I mean, let's unpack that a little bit. How do you define top talent?
So say, as an example, you've got a job and you've got a specific job that you need to fill.
Yeah.
If it's challenging to find the perfect person to fill that position who requires no training, already knows what they're doing, it might cost a lot more money, whatever it may be. Are you going to take that person over someone who is willing to learn? And do you have the systems in place to train those people?
Yeah. So Storewise is built on the foundation of three core values: love the independence, embrace the struggle, and win together. Okay. That defines how we behave. And then there's a set of 6 aspirational values that, the core values we practice every day. It's evident that we do it. Then we aspire to become these other 6. With that said, is that everybody coming in here has to embrace the concept of healthy conflict. So, and this is not this. I'm plagiarizing here because this is Patrick Lencioni's. He delivers. How an organization should run, and you basically have the spectrum of artificial harmony. All the way to unhealthy. I can't remember. He calls it unhealthy conflict, or he calls it something else. But my point is that he wants companies or people to border on really being transparent and truthful, without necessarily being offending the person, attacking the issue and not the person. And he says that is necessary for companies to really grow and become successful. So I think that when candidates come here and they meet all of the leaders, all the leaders stress that you are here to speak up, share your ideas, defend your position, challenge. And if they agree to that, then the functional skill set, or whether they're a top talent marketer or a top talent salesperson, that's secondary. Mm-hmm. That's secondary. Okay. The biggest thing in a company that's growing, and I put this out to the company, is like, what is the non-negotiable now that we've all been together, for over 2 years? I came in 2020. Or more than 2 years. What's that one non-negotiable? And the number one that bubbled up to the top was resilience. Mm-hmm. Right. And I think every company, especially early, that's an important mindset, to have, that you're there to overcome obstacles. So you could be a great marketer, but what happens when your marketing doesn't work? You can be a top sales leader, exceeding quota in your last 4 companies. But what happens when you can't meet face to face for 2 years during COVID because your client base is all over Zoom? And that is a very, very, especially when you're selling SaaS, that I'm not saying that's impossible, but it basically makes it more difficult, especially in the industry I'm in, grocery, where it is a face-to-face, hands-on, in-person business. Mm-hmm. Right. So how do you overcome that? And I think being able to go ahead. So we actually have a very rigorous interview template that goes across that really services 4 key areas. How smart are they? IQ. How, what is their EQ, right? Emotional quotient. What is their CQ, cultural quotient? Are they a cultural fit? And what's their HQ, their hustle quotient? If they can check the box on all 4 of those, they're likely a candidate for Storewise. And that's our benchmark for everybody that we go ahead and bring in. There's a set of questions that each of the leaders ask, and we basically ascertain, whether they're fit or not.
I like that. And I agree with you. I would prefer, and what I've done so far with my businesses is like, I would prefer to have the right people that I can teach to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Like some of these things you can't teach. And so I like this IQ, EQ, CQ, HQ sort of survey that you have going on to make sure that you have the right people who are willing to hustle, willing to, have healthy amounts of conflict, and raise their voice and, work together. And then you're right. The functional stuff you can teach. I don't know if you agree.
Question, just one other point I just want to make, Josh, is that in those, when we go through this question, it's not like most of the questions lead with "tell me a time when."
Yeah,
we're asking for behavior, right? And they'll like, listen, I haven't experienced a time. Like, tell me a time we had to overcome some level of adversity, personally and professionally. Most people will go to the personal side, which is interesting, right? They want to speak to that, that accomplishment. But the tell me a time is, I think, getting behavioral. And the other thing we back it up with is the 16personalities.com, plugging them, but it's the Myers-Briggs test with a little bit of a twist. And that gives us insights into helping us understand the fit for the role.
Have you ever used DISC personality?
Yes. Yes.
I like that one a lot.
Yeah, I like that one too. It's a great one.
That's funny. The tech startup that I worked at was called Round Peg, and it was exactly this. It was a cultural fit survey that we had created. It was a SaaS that we were selling. That's really cool.
So there's been so much stuff in the news recently, obviously, about like the economy, recession, Chat GPT, AI, robots, all kinds of, like, I just saw a video of a robot. It's like a brand new video of this robot that was like working on a fake construction site. And they're like, it's like,
and I saw that too.
It's like doing flips and I put it on my Instagram story if you want to check it out, but
I'll check it out.
The last video I ever saw of a robot, it was just like so clunky moving. And this guy's like freaking dancing and jumping around and stuff. And it just seems like we're kind of in this insane exponential, and like same last time I saw like any sort of AI was just like, okay. But now like Chat GPT, I don't know too much about it, but it seems to be worlds ahead where you can be like, write me a book and it's just like prints it out in seconds and it's amazing. So just, that's obviously a lot of different things, but my question is, what, like, especially going into the future, what makes an organization resilient?
Well, it's a simple answer. The people. That's what makes an organization resilient. Under the foundation of the people is the culture, and I think the culture, that term has been bastardized, right? It seems like it's a soft stuff. It's not hard, like hitting a sales number, building a marketing pipeline, making sure you're cash flow positive. Hey, if you don't have culture, those those aforementioned, points don't happen. My company, all my leaders, every single one of them have taken a significant pay cut to come here. And this is in the era of super high growth, right? Salaries were off the charts, right? In Kansas City now, if you're remote, you're probably working for an East Coast company that's paying you an East Coast wage to live in a city that has a much lower cost of living. Mm-hmm. Of course, all my leaders have equity, but it's interesting what they gave up to, because they come in a store wise, they have a sense of purpose. There's a mission. They believe they're disrupting an industry. They're making sure that we don't live, when we want to go grocery shopping, that our only two options are Walmart and Dollar General. That to me, that scares me.
Yeah, definitely.
We want to make sure the independent
barely food,
right? And we know e-commerce isn't working. We know that there's barely any margin. Now the larger ones can make it work, but people are still going to, it's not over 15% of grocery sales. in $1 trillion industry, people are still going to the grocery store. We want to make sure that those independents not only survive but thrive. That's and the leadership team and the other 25 employees are totally bought into that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Are you concerned at all? I'm just interested, like, I guess your take or how you even do like the day to day, like looking at things like this. Like, are you concerned at all about economy, technology, any of those things kind of phasing businesses out or causing problems? Or do you think maybe they're going to be opportunities? Like, how do you kind of think about that stuff?
I mean, I don't want to say yes and yes, but it's true. Where there's opportunity, where there's there's risk, there's reward. And so there's going to be opportunity, especially in the current economy, and it's going to be like any other economy before, where I think this is an opportunity for greatness. Where do you want greatness? I tell companies all the time, do you want greatness? Do you want comfort?
Right.
What do you want?
Yeah.
And both. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you can't be comfortable anytime, because most of the time, ease is the enemy. Denzel Washington, when he accepted, I think there was it was one of the BET awards where he got up there and he said, ease is a greater threat to progress than hardship.
Oh yeah.
And you saw the slow, the actors all, well, them all by name, just saying, letting it settle in, like, because it's not easy. So, in a recession, I think that, or in any economy, there's opportunity. And I think that you just have to recognize that and be bullish on your ability to be in the 1%. And I think that's the mindset here.
I guess that's kind of like the that's what an entrepreneur does. Like, that's the entrepreneur mindset, which is like, there's going to be things that come up, and it's either, there's going to be problems and opportunities there, and we just deal with them as they come.
Yeah. And I think going back to your other question on, I'm very transparent with the company. And I think that, the things you remember in your childhood, I remember my mother, I was 15 years old. She told me like, I don't know, it was probably like, April or May, says, hey, Chris, Dad's not going to make it at Christmas, but we're going to be okay. Here's, and my 11 and 4-year-old brother and sister didn't know that. And the things you remember, from your personal life that you apply to it's just interesting. I apply to business. And no employee here should ever be surprised. And I think that where organizations fail, where there's not cultural alignment, like if we have a problem as a company if we have a problem that's company affecting, like every employee here will know about it. And what they'll do is say, okay, what do I need to do to help us overcome that problem? Versus the fear that CEOs will have is, okay, people are going to punch out, which is very easy to do, less easy to do now, but a year ago, very easy to do, right? Jobs were plentiful. So I think that's something that I've always carried with me, that's maybe it's helped me here.
Definitely.
That's got to be a hard thing to I mean, it's essentially been built into your culture, because the first thing I think of is, man, to maintain that healthy level of communication at such a large organization must be challenging. I mean, with a small group of people at a startup, it is small.
Yeah, we're 30. So we're 30. We're 30 people, but when George Schultz came back in as CEO of Starbucks, and I can't remember who he took over for, but he basically flew all 12,000 of his his managers and assistant managers to Dallas or Austin. And he was prepping his leadership team on what he's going to say. And they are advising him not to say what he was going to say, which was the current state of where Starbucks was back in 2008 or 2009. He writes it in his book. But when you look at his experience on why he built the company, and I don't know if you know his story about his father falling, breaking his hip as a delivery driver. Company fired him. Schultz comes home. He's in elementary school. He saw his dad lying on the couch, and he basically, after he launched Starbucks, said, "Dad, I built a company that you would be proud to work for." I think, right?
Yeah.
And so in that, I'm not the founder of Storewise, but people will say I bring a founder mentality. I care about the people, my people first. They're ahead of my customers. My employees are ahead of my customers, my teammates. I care about the industry. And I think that matters, for any leader. And it's what any prospective employee or team member should look for. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, Josh, if they answer your question or not, but.
Well, no, yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like people think of you and you have a founder mentality. It sounds like a lot of the people that you hire also have that same mentality of like, we're in this together. 100%. Yeah. Which is part of what makes you so successful. So I imagine, and I wanted to ask you this question about why it's so hard to scale a company, because I feel like starting a company isn't too hard. You go get your LLC, you have a product or a service that you provide, you get a customer, like that's the easy part. Why is scaling it so hard? And I know part of the answer is because of the people, but any insight you have, as Travis and I are entrepreneurs trying to scale our own businesses, any insight that you have for us to help make that a little bit smoother of a process?
Well, I think the number one with early stage is you always have the cash constraint, no matter how much cash you have.
Yeah.
Oh, right. I mean, in corp. I mean, I remember when I put like a go to market budget at Sprint, and it was. I remember it was $330,000, and I'm like, a big corporate, $35 billion company is nothing, dude. $10,000 matters here, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, it shouldn't matter. The thing is, it shouldn't matter anywhere.
Yeah.
So no matter how big we get, and we will be a $1 billion organization. I mean, we are going to become the de facto grocery software platform for independents. That's going to happen. It impressed upon me that I actually lost a little being in corporate, thing. Oh, 300,000, and it was approved. It was like in 24 hours, it was approved.
It's wild.
So the cash constraint is the biggest thing. Having to deal with the investors who will pop up and say, "Hey, Chris, can you send me last quarter's P&L?" Mm-hmm. And then they drill you on it, and knowing they're not going to have really an impact, and because I now know the business very, very well. I do take their advice is important. But the cash constraint, managing investors who I love, otherwise wouldn't be here, I think is really the big difference. And then thinking that all the people that work in the organization, they have responsibilities, mm-hmm. Mortgage, rent, school, kids, and you really want to make this successful, because you would hate to, having to go the other way, and which thank God, we're not. But this was a turnaround situation when I took it over, for sure. Mm-hmm. And the reason why we're successful is not necessarily because of me; it's because of the, first and foremost, the leadership team that we built and the employees that have bought in.
Mm-hmm. The cash constraint we definitely feel that. Because you want to grow.
Have you guys ever heard the term? So in corporate, which the new term was thrown around a lot, intrapreneur.
Intrapreneur, yeah, yep.
You heard the term?
Yep.
I have not. I haven't. What is it?
It's called intrapreneur.
Intrapreneur?
Rather than entrepreneur? Yeah.
Versus entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of was a head scratcher at the time before I went early stage, but now that I've been through it,
makes sense.
What are you talking about? What do you mean entrepreneur mean? It's the other way, because
what is it? What does it mean?
They're taking the term entrepreneur and they're trying to it's a term that large corporations, where individuals will use it in large corporations to describe, being an entrepreneur within a large
like being your own boss within this organization. Exactly. Type of thing.
And I've interviewed people that have done, they say I have startup experience, and that startup is like is a division of a multi-billion-dollar corporation.
Right.
They never have the cash constraint or dealing with VCs or outside money. It's totally different. So I think, I'm not going to use the term I don't think I would, if I went back to corporate, I would never use that term.
Yeah.
See, I wouldn't use it in a corporate setting.
It's like, probably
a cash.
When I hear the word entrepreneur, I think of like the people that are working at your company. That's what I think. I would never use it in a corporate setting. It doesn't make sense to me in a corporate setting.
Yeah, that's fair. It's a corporate term. And I'm not saying it's negative, but when they say that, when they say, hey, it's like being an entrepreneur in my company, I'm like,
no.
I don't think it makes sense from like the company standpoint to say that, but I like the concept for speaking to the individual, as in like, hey, in your job, if you either want to succeed at that company or you want to just improve your life and move on somewhere else, you probably should treat yourself like that, because like, what do those people do? Like if you're saying like entrepreneur versus, employee, an employee, theoretically is just taking what it sounds like to me is like employee is getting managed by somebody. Entrepreneur is like, let me figure this out for myself. And like, that's definitely the mindset you want to have if you want to like move on from there or move up in the company or improve your life in general. You can't be like looking for people to tell you what to do all the time.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So I think it's probably a good mindset just for individuals to have, you know what I mean? Like be your own. Obviously you have a boss, but kind of be your own boss at the same time. Like, what are the things that you're not good at that you need to learn? Like take a sales course online, take a communication course online. Like there's so many things that you can do.
Yep. I agree.
Chris, what do you think, speaking to smaller organizations that are struggling with cash constraints, what do you think the most valuable what do you think the most valuable place for us to allocate some of that cash to would be as far as our marketing strategy goes? Is it ad spend? Is it media? Is it, are you spending money on social media personally for you guys?
That's a great question, Josh. We don't have a head of marketing here yet. I think looking back on it now, we probably should have hired, some of the things that we do well, some of the things that we can improve upon. We're probably 3 months, maybe 6 months past due. But the first thing that we did is that I hired a contractor, and we just said, you know what, the market could use, some insights and education on retail technology. So we developed a lot of content, free content that they could use, not selling store-wise, like the 7 biggest pricing mistakes you can make in a store, right? 70% of loss is due to, internal errors, not necessarily internal theft and things like that. And I think that when you look at, I see the traffic, that's helped us. That's helped our brand. And I think that before you go into like paid, you definitely need a leader that really understands the market. You gotta understand your personas, who your true buyers are. And then you need to set some objectives. The number one goal of marketing is to build pipeline, not sales. Sales does not build pipeline. Marketing does.
Yeah. And
I'm proud. I am proud and a little bit apprehensive about sharing this fact that 100% of StoreWise's growth has been outbound. That's awesome. That tells you, hey, that's great, thumbs up, but it'd be nice for my sales team to have a customer have heard of StoreWise before they called them, right? Yeah. And that's the opportunity. Yeah. That's the opportunity for marketing. We've got a lot of organic content. We're very good we're celebrating good news in the company, and that's traveled well. And the publications like Shelby Report, Progressive Grocer, Grocery Dive, which are really the 3 mains, and supermarket news that cover our industry. We haven't really had to really pay a lot to get exposure on them. They've naturally picked us up because of the good work that we're doing. And then when they see that we're our core value, number one core value is love the independence, they know we're not just about selling, another widget or a piece of software, that we really care and are invested in their success.
Mm-hmm.
What does your outbound look like? Is it like cold calling, or how do you go about it?
Well, we've established great relationships in the industry with like wholesalers like Associated Wholesale Grocers, affiliated food industry down in Texas, and so there's a bit of familiarity when we call sometimes, but it's purely my sales team. I have an inside sales team, and then I have a single enterprise person that focuses on the larger higher end part of the market. That's more face to face on the road. But really, that's really it, and they're very effective in dialing, building a relationship. It's a long cycle. It takes time to build trust in this industry, let alone any industry. I don't think it's unique.
Yeah.
But they've been with me for over a year now, the sales team. So I'm pretty proud of that, given the high attrition that's been in the function of sales over the last year.
And so are you working like directly with retail stores, or do you work with distributors, or who are your clients, I guess?
So our client, so where do you shop? Where do you shop?
I shop at King Soopers when I need to, and then I would prefer to shop at Sprouts. Those are the two that are closer to me.
So Sprouts is a big chain. King Sooper would be our customer. We would call on King Sooper directly.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then basically and it's very simple. Our software actually integrates with the cash register, the point of sale, and we analyze every transaction, take a snapshot, throw that up into the StoreWise secure cloud, and the cloud works its magic and gives reporting back to the grocer saying, hey, you could raise this price, you could lower this price. You're going to be out of stock here soon because you're moving so many. Hey, there's an anomaly. Why did your cashier, hand key all these items when they have a barcode? That's intelligence that's been proven to be of value for these grocers. So we talk to them directly, but we are building channel partnerships now too, which is necessary for growth.
And so you basically, like, your software, what would be your elevator pitch, I guess?
Yeah. So StoreWise automates manual tasks and catches errors to help the grocer succeed.
Cool. Yeah, I'm always curious about that, because that's like something I always need to get better at, like having a concise.
That wasn't even an elevator pitch. That was like a hold the door pitch.
Yeah, the one-liner.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the next, and you got the elevator pitch always needs to get tested, right? So help the that I've heard my salespeople use because they listen and but that's basically automational tasks, and catching errors really is foundational.
Oh, it looks like the internet. Are you guys lagging over there?
I lagged a little bit.
I lagged a little bit. I'm back.
Yeah.
Can you get, okay, cool.
I'm seeing.
You want to run that back?
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't catch that, so I would love to hear that again. James, we can edit this out.
If you want to go back to the elevator pitch?
Yeah. Past that, I think.
Just past the elevator pitch. Yeah, what you said after that.
Yeah. So what's foundational StoreWise? We automate manual tasks and catches errors. That's foundational. The second phrase, because our sales team listens, they'll either go broad and say to help the growth succeed, or to guarantee profits, which is a bit more aggressive.
Yeah.
But the automation of stuff that's manual seems to be, we've had that now for 2 years, and it seems to work, because when you think of automating, so what's manual? Hanging, when a grocer has to hang 200 pricing tags, and my software says you don't need to hang them because the price you have there is working, that saves a couple hours per day, right? So that's a really resonates. And yeah, that's the first thing that we incorporated, was like, well, what's our purpose and mission, and how do we say that succinctly?
Yeah. I mean, things when it comes to financials like that, things like that, they seem to make sense. You can raise the price on this and we can guarantee that if you lower the price on this, then you'll sell more of them. So you'll make more money. It seems like a no-brainer, and so you said it very succinctly.
Yeah, especially because the thing is that the grocer is being told, here's a suggested retail, but the consumer tells them what the suggested retail is.
Yeah.
Right. And so we just basically need to support the growth. A lot of these folks started with produce stands, 3-4 generations ago.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I mean, in Kansas City, Dante Constantino, 31 stores now, operation in the hundreds of millions. He painted chapels as he was building his grocery business. Fred Ball, 27 store in Kansas City. He brought the first self-checkout register to the U.S. And you know who visited him to check it out? Sam Walton. As Walmart was deciding to go into grocery. And now 56% of Walmart sales are grocery.
Pretty wild.
So yeah, so it's I didn't think I'd have this much of affinity for an industry, but I really, I've been in telecom, cybersecurity, mobile, software, SMS, and now grocery. And grocery is the one, believe it or not, is the one I'm most excited about.
Do you think that's because it's the most human?
Hey, you might. Yeah, I never thought of it like that. Yeah.
Every part of it. It's like everyone has memories of not everyone, but a lot of people have memories of going to the grocery store with their parents, or it's you're never allowed to get something. And then the one time you get the candy bar and you know what I mean? There's a lot of very memories like that. It's something that we all it's kind of a community, show up and say hi to people, whatever. It's something that we all need to survive, literally. Yeah.
Well, it's really especially when you go to these, tier 2 and I say that respectfully, these smaller markets. Like I was in Fremont, Nebraska. All right. And this guy, it was the first thing I did, I got on the road with my sales team when I became CEO. First thing. Mm-hmm. And this was the third time I think we were either visiting or we called on this gentleman. He had 4 stores. Make a long story short, we basically were saving his business $25,000 annually per store. And it was on the trial period. So now that he opted in, and he says, wow, I'm doing so well with you guys. I'm able to serve my community. I want you to go, you're the CEO of the company. You go over see that big box over there? I want you to go and take 2 watermelons home with you and share with your kids. And I think you guys are too young for this, or maybe you're not, but you remember those big watermelons with the big black seeds inside of them?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That's where these watermelons. And some people watching this podcast right now, that's kind of hokey, but I thought it was endearing.
Yeah.
And he's been with us for, he's still with us, right? He's crushing it. The thing there in Fremont is that there's a Dollar General across the street from him that has not put him out of the business. His store employs 8 people. That Dollar General has 2 people.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so it's a big deal. It's a big deal in markets, and these bigger markets, it's even a better story because they're not run or controlled, by Walmart. You don't want big corporations having too much. You don't.
Yeah.
Amazon needs to be broken up. I'm a big conservative. They need to be broken up. They're a grocery store. They're a bookstore. They're an airline. They're an e-commerce company. They're too damn big.
Yeah. That's a good, that'd be a good marketing campaign, showing things like that, like the watermelon, or just showing the the memories of the children. And it's basically we take care of all the boring stuff. We our software handles all the boring stuff, so you can focus on the people.
What matters.
That'd be a good one.
I'm interviewing for a head of marketing.
Yeah.
You want to speed up your day job, right?
Let's talk.
All good. It's all good. I love getting great ideas can come from anywhere. right?
Yeah.
Really. So you always got to be listening to people.
Yeah,
that's right.
And
that's why we do this podcast.
Stories. Yeah, that's literally why we do this podcast. And I was just going to say, it comes down to the stories, and that's why I don't know. I feel like we may have a different interview style, but I'm always interested in the stories. Like I want to hear the stories behind why people do what they do, and so like you're explaining that story of the kind man with the watermelon, like it's very human. It's very relatable. Yeah. It's something that we can see that it's genuine. And, like you said, Amazon has to be broken up. Like we don't get that from those. We use it because it's easy and it's too convenient, but
people don't like to voice things that can come across as being, confrontational, but all that we're doing is expressing an idea. And the person who says that Amazon needs to be kept whole, has every right to say that, as much as I is saying that Amazon needs to be broken up.
Yep.
Totally.
There's no malice there. I'm like, hey, that's your opinion. I just don't agree with it.
It's interesting because Travis and I, we met in Vermont, and this is like, kind of in line with what we're talking about, but we met in Vermont. So we went to school in Burlington, Vermont, where chains weren't allowed in Burlington.
Yeah. No McDonald's.
There was no McDonald's. There was no there was no chains in Burlington. And you know what? It was really nice. And I never thought of it before until I lived in Burlington. And I was like, man, now all these mom and pop shops, these like really delicious restaurants that wouldn't have had the opportunity to thrive, they do. And from there, we both ended up in Colorado. Same thing in Boulder. I don't think there's really any chains in downtown.
Retail there is, but no like there's like Burton and stuff like that there. But there's no like chain restaurants or anything like that. It's also and if there is, it's really cool. it's like small business. They have like 3 locations in Colorado.
So I would take it that I'm a big foodie, right? The one policy here, travel policy, is that I don't have a limit on dining. With my
I like that.
I don't.
You're selling Travis on it right now.
I am. Come on, Travis. So you want the jobs posted on LinkedIn. So after we get off, I'm expecting.
All right, I'll check it out.
But they don't. There's no per diem. They want to go have a steak with wine. Go and do it. Just don't. I don't want to see a big Marriott or Hilton bill. You can stay at a Courtyard or Holiday Inn Express. Would do just fine. And that's because traveling is a big deal. Time away from families. The thing about corporate is that most of the people designing, corporate child policies don't travel.
Yep.
And they hate hearing that, but it's true.
They're looking at numbers.
Yeah, they're looking at numbers. They don't travel. I mean, the people traveling are likely the ones dealing with the people that are paying the bills.
Mm-hmm.
You want the interaction to be good. Yeah. Right. You're motivated, pumped. So after a good or a rough meeting, the sales team knows, and I see the expense reports, that they can go have a good meal.
I like that.
Not worry about a cap.
Yeah, that's really good.
I like that. Really, I feel like the majority of what we've been talking about today is just take good care of your people. Bring on people that are in line with your vision and that are go-getters and hustlers and that are willing to have hard conversations, like really just genuinely good people, and take care of them. Like that seems like the overarching theme of today's conversation.
I agree. At the same time, I've had hard conversations with people too.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You want to because the thing when you hire a truly performing culture, people recognize people who are not bought in or it's just not the right fit. Yeah. And you got to act on that quickly as a leader. And that starts with a conversation, and, after a conversation, if it doesn't change, then something else does change. So I think that being, in addition to always recognize when they're doing something right is important, but making sure that, when you find some people, when you have people that just aren't a fit, you got to make the decision that's best for the company.
Ooh, okay. I have one last question for you. And this is something that I recently was talking about in therapy was for the majority of the population. And I asked this because you mentioned, rewarding them for when they do something right. Okay. And I'm curious, there is a difference in how well received and how well basically it works to reward people a X number of times versus give them something to work on or improve upon. So in general, it's like it's like a 3-to-1 ratio where like you did 3 things good. Here's 1 thing you can improve upon. And apparently in relationships, it's more like a 5-to-1 ratio. You're communicating with your partner, like things can hurt a little bit more. So it's usually like a 5-to-1 ratio. Here are 5 things you did good. Here's 1 thing that I think you should work on.
Yeah.
Do you think it's different in business?
I mean, it depends on the business. I mean, the rate. So are you talking about like, is that 5-to-1 in one sitting? Like in a review or a formal meeting?
Just in general.
Yeah. So we do on-demand coaching. I mean, there's something that's the right or wrong, it happens. Just to be, transparent. I remember one employee in a company, not too far, way back a little bit. She said to me, Chris, it's really hard based on some of your feedback. I'm really challenged to think that I could ever, become a high performer for you. That hit home.
Yeah.
That hit home.
Mm.
And she was a great employee. I just, I knew she had the potential, but it was too early in the relationship. I didn't establish, she needed time with me to understand my style, for me to understand, hers. But it hit home, and I did make a change. And you see, I'll let certain things go to saying, look, Chris, you're probably much worse at this stage in your career than what you're getting ready to coach somebody about. Right.
Yeah.
So I give people the benefit of the doubt. And I think that, mistakes are the majority aren't deliberate. They just don't know. And certain things you can let go or bring it up at another time. But I think we do a good job here of catching them when they're doing something right and recognizing it more so than the inverse.
Yeah. And the way you just explained that, by the way, massive levels of emotional intelligence, the way it was presented. Like you can, and I go back to your hiring survey of emotional intelligence being a value that you want to support in people that come on board your team. And that was it. How you just explained that.
And I will say this is that they'll never tell you.
Yeah.
You got to say, listen, I'm not your boss. Like I know I'm human. I make more mistakes and I do things right. Tell me where I'm falling short. Yeah. And then she said, since you asked, right?
Yeah.
And so we have to ask. We have to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's important.
And that's a hard conversation. And it's hard because a lot of times you also have to be ready to hear it, ready and willing to hear it. Like when you ask that question,
actually,
you got to be like, all right.
Yeah. I feel like some people will check in that because they just want to hear that they're great, and it's like, nah, you got to be willing. You got to be actually truly wanting to hear that feedback.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And I get, and it's nice. I mean, I got this morning from one of my leaders. I don't know if you can read it.
Nice.
Thank you for your continued trust, support, and mentorship. So it says, Chris, thank you for your continued trust, support, and mentorship. It means more than you know. I heard a rumor you had interest in one of these. May your coffee never get cold again. 2023, here we come. Was it a Yeti?
Awesome.
That was on my desk. That was on my desk this morning. And I will be aggravated if I do not see an expense report for this.
Yeah.
I think we purchased on our own. So
that's awesome.
So yeah, I got a little emotional when I got it, but this is someone who came in as an individual contributor and now runs the largest organization at Storewise.
Wow, that's awesome. That's That's the culture that you want to build.
Yep. And and you know, the thing is that like, you'll have some of my investors, like, what you're going to say, don't say it. I've told her, I'm like, if you left, we'd be in trouble. She's heard that from me.
Yeah.
She's heard that from me.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, and she needs to. So yeah, I'm proud. I'm really proud of what we've been able to do here. And I know that I could, you know, walk away and, which I'm not going to do that, but this company would be okay. We'd continue growing, and that's just a testament to the leaders that we've established and how well the people have bought into it. So
yeah,
I enjoyed our time today. You guys are really good interviewers. I mean, and
oh, thank you.
Great conversational. Even better conversationalists.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you.
We're curious to learn ourselves, quite honestly, as we grow our business. And so this was a really valuable conversation for me, and definitely shed light on some things that I want to improve upon, and some new ideas for how we're going to go about continuing to scale. Like, you've clearly done an amazing job bringing people on and facilitating a really high quality culture. So I appreciate you sharing it with us, man. Honestly.
Yeah. Send me, if you send me a mailing address, I'll send you both signed copies of my book.
That'd be awesome.
It's helped me here in this role.
That would be awesome. I would love that.
I read my own advice sometimes.
But you forget sometimes. Half of being able to apply things is just remembering it.
100%.
So
100%.
That's the hard part.
I would love that. Yeah, we'll get our addresses over to you via email right after this. I really appreciate that. And again, I really appreciate your time, Chris. You know, I know our listeners are probably going to want to learn more about you and your book. So before we take off, why don't you give yourself a plug and, you know, tell our listeners where they can find you, where they can get your book, and learn a little bit more about you.
Yeah, so you can go to I have a personal website. It's ChristopherGreco.org. That's Christopher Greco.org. And if you want the book, actually, it's very findable on Amazon. You just have to go to Amazon and search 8 Steps Adversity, and I think it's either one or comes up at 1 or 2 in the ranking. I just broke 50 reviews on it. I think a couple weeks ago.
Congrats.
So that's good. And I got a personal email from one of the readers, which was nice. It was like a bit of an anthology, but he was telling me about he lost his father too when he was young. But my mother was really the backbone of the family, and his mother fell into alcoholism, and now he's raising a family, and his story, he should write a book after reading it. But I have 8 Steps Adversity, and I'll offer this to your listeners. If they buy the book and read it, and they send me an email to cg@ChristopherGreco.org, that's cg@ChristopherGreco.org, or to my company, chris@storewise.io. It's chris@storewise.io. If they tell me how it's impacted them, I will send them a signed copy. That way they can take the one they bought and pay it forward.
That's That's awesome.
I love that. All about impact, man.
Yep. That's how it is.
I love it.
That's how it is.
Yeah. Well,
we'll put
Chris,
all that in the show notes too.
Yeah, we'll put all that in the show notes. So to the listeners, you guys can find all that information. Chris, thank you again, man. This has been a great conversation.
No, thank you guys. I applaud you
Thank
both
you
for taking the time to do this. And you have a great conversationalist, great interviewers. Wishing you much continued success with your podcast.
Thank you. And you as well with Storewise and every other endeavor that you end up in.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.